Does this image make you uncomfortable? If yes, you might be thalassophobic. You are afraid of not knowing what is hidden under the water. And I understand you. I came across a video of a guy jumping off an aircraft carrier in the middle of the ocean, only to realize during editing that there were sharks just below. However, seeing underwater while diving is not more reassuring. I will tell you 6 stories of divers that will send chills down your spine. Tragedy of Bushman Hall. Bushman Hall in South Africa is known to be one of the deepest and most dangerous diving spots in the world. A narrow cavity at first that eventually opens into a vast chamber 280 meters deep. It doesn't seem deep at 280 meters, but it is well beyond human limits. At 50 meters deep, you can no longer breathe normal air. Due to the pressure, the air becomes toxic. You are forced to use tanks with special gas mixtures. 100 meters deep is the recommended legal limit for experienced divers. Beyond that, only about 10 people have dared to defy the 250-meter limit, and few have survived. Yet, in 2004, Dave Shaw succeeded. He reached the bottom of Bushman Hall at 280 meters, setting the world record for freshwater diving. Nevertheless, at the bottom of the hole, he saw something strange, the body of a man. It was Dion Dryers. 10 years earlier, in 1994, an Australian Diving Association had said, "Hey guys, let's dive 100 meters into Bushman Hall. It could be fun." Dion's mother had begged him not to go, the place being known for taking the lives of divers. He didn't listen, and it went wrong. At just 50 meters deep, he fainted, but instead of floating, due to the weight of his equipment, he sank to the bottom of the hole. It was impossible for his team to save him, so 10 years later, Dave Shaw found him. Dave is very religious. Upon coming out of the hole, he promised he would bring up this body and offer this boy a proper grave. He decided to launch a massive rescue operation. The press was there. The rescuers were there. Dion Dryer's parents too. Everything would be filmed to make a documentary. That's where the tragedy begins. Dave Shaw descends the 280 meters again. The boy is still there. His mission was simple. Take the skeleton, put it in the bag, and come back up. The plan had to be as precise as possible. The movements had to be mechanical because at this depth, you can no longer think. We are in the depths of intoxication. The water pressure affects the gases in your brain, and you are completely drunk. Divers use the Martini law to measure this intoxication. At 30 meters, it's like 2 glasses of alcohol. At 64 and at 280 meters, phew, it's more than you can drink on a Saturday night. And unfortunately for Dave, the plan did not go as expected. When pulling the body out of the silt, it did not have the usual texture. It floats. It flies like a piece of cloth in the wind. Dion Dryer's body did not decompose normally. It's saponified. Its texture is like soap, what is called grave wax. Faced with this unforeseen event and with the intoxication, Dave panicked. When he saw his reflection in the mask of the floating body, he realized he was already dead. He screamed, stumbled, got tangled in his lines. He was in total darkness, not knowing where was up, down, right, or left. It was over for him. His best friend Don Shirley tried to save him, but he never managed to reach the bottom. Due to the pressure, his equipment exploded and he started vomiting into his diving respirator. A fiasco. They had to urgently bring Charlie up without respecting the decompression stops, which severely damaged his body and brain. He still suffers from serious after effects today. As for his friend Dave, he couldn't be saved and remained at the bottom, surely still a little alive for a few hours. Dion's parents thought they would find their son that day. The Bushman Hall also took the life of a friend from them. The 2 bodies were finally brought up 4 days later. Both were entwined together, as if they wanted to dance one last waltz. Underwater caves are generally reserved for experienced divers. It's a dangerous hobby that has often claimed lives. In the United States, the Vortex Springs caves are indeed off limits. Many adventurers pass through the heavy sealed doors. Many have never been found. What would you do if you were stuck in a boat at the bottom of the ocean? Imagine being a diver in a wreck, and as you visit a room, a hand grabs you. We are off the coast of Nigeria, and 3 days earlier, a tugboat was sunk by a violent rogue wave. The 12 people on board couldn't get out in time. The rooms where they slept were heavily locked to protect them from pirates. Barely out of the room, they were already 30 meters underwater. Some tried to reach the surface. All perished. All except one. Harrison Hawkenay was the ship's cook, and during the accident, he was in the toilet, relieving himself. The impact with the wave was particularly violent. Water rushed in, the electricity went out. He found himself trapped in the toilet with a small air bubble the size of his head. It's dark, it's cold, and he knows he doesn't have enough oxygen to survive. So he decides to dive. Yes. Dive into the unknown. Guide himself blindly until he finds in the engine room an air bubble large enough to survive. He stayed there for 3 days in complete darkness. He heard the agonizing cries of his friends trapped in bubbles too small. He heard the sharks devour their bodies in the room next door. He heard the first group of rescuers inspect the wreck without hearing Hakane banging like crazy on the ship's hull, and despite the despair, he always held on. When 3 days later, divers explored the wreck to bring up the bodies, Hakane knew it was his last chance. He dove in, grabbed the diver, who, at that moment, must have had the scare of his life. No one was supposed to be alive in there anymore. Hakane was lucky. Rescues of this kind often end badly. When in the 2000s, a Russian submarine sank to the bottom of the sea, 23 sailors managed to find refuge in an air bubble. Unfortunately, a fire broke out, consuming all the available oxygen. Today, I reassure you, for Hakane, everything is fine. However, he swore never to return to the sea again. These are things you would never want to discover underwater. There are divers who are lucky, like the one who found 1 million euros worth of gold coins buried in the sand. On YouTube, there are channels specialized in finding underwater objects, like that of Dalmit, 10 million subscribers. Usually, they find iPhones, weapons, hand spinners, but that day, in a black box, he discovered human remains. Nothing criminal, fortunately. It was the memories of a deceased person thrown into the water. Stories of strange finds. There are plenty on Reddit. For example, the one about a Canadian diver who discovered a large rusty freezer sealed with a heavy chain. What could possibly be in there? So he didn't dare open it. The police will take care of it. They will cut the heavy chain to discover 10 porcelain dolls. It's not exactly reassuring. I hope the officer didn't watch Chucky the night before. We don't know the end of the story, but it's probably a prank or an artist's work, because you might not know it, but divers are quite the jokers, and in several places around the world, little creepy surprises await you. For example, in a Minnesota lake, an artist submerged a statue of Jason, the immortal killer from the Friday the 13th movies. You can take a selfie with him, hoping that thing doesn't wake up. In the Colorado River, this time you have a tea party of fake skeletons. So it's cute, but the police are regularly called because many divers are not aware and come face to face with that. But what I find the most amazing are the works of sculptors who try to create real underwater scenes. For example, a huge 5-meter colossus in the waters of the Bahamas, or these 500 statues in Mexico, forming a real underwater museum. You can swim through these works, even if it must be strange to stumble upon them by chance. Meet your murderer underwater. It's worthy of an Agatha Christie novel, but sea diving is clearly the place for the perfect crime. It's 2003. Gabe and Tina Watson decide for their honeymoon to treat themselves to a trip to Australia. Both being passionate about diving, he decides to visit the wreck of the SS Yongala. It was 10:30 a.m. The couple was diving when suddenly, from the husband's point of view, Tina moved away from him, lost consciousness, and sank 30 meters deep. Still, according to him, he tried to save her, but in panic, she scratched his face and disconnected his regulator, which forced the husband to ascend. Well, that's one of his versions. In another, he said that the depth hurt his ears. Poor kid. You guessed it, it's bullshit. Testimonies from people in the wreck report an underwater argument, and the dive computer recorded that they were indeed side by side. The police therefore hypothesized that he turned off his wife's regulator, the mechanism that allows breathing air from the tank. He then embraced her, held her firmly. Once his femicide was committed, he reactivated the regulator, unseen, unknown. And you know the worst part? It's that a few days earlier, he asked the girl's father to increase her life insurance. And barely after the crime was committed, he went to claim compensation from the insurance company. The guy not suspicious at all. But then, why am I telling you this? Because the husband was not convicted. He was first tried in Australia, then in the United States, and nothing happened to him. He was acquitted. The judge will still scold him a little by saying that it's not cool to ask for the insurance money so quickly after his wife's death. Yes, sorry, excuse me, I won't do it again, I promise, sorry. The worst part is that this story of husbands committing a crime underwater, there have been plenty, and surprisingly, very few convictions. For example, Shelley and David Swain, same modus operandi as before. A wreck, the oxygen cut off, and insurance questions. Everything was against him. A 25-year sentence was requested, yet he was released. It was impossible to determine if it was a provoked drowning or not. The judge will conclude that it was surely the perfect crime, and well, frankly, well done, 10 out of 10 for that. We release you, go ahead. Conclusion: don't dive with your boyfriend if you have life insurance. The scream from the abyss. Oil platforms are places that make me uncomfortable. A huge metal structure lost in the middle of the ocean, balanced above thousands of meters of water. Due to the presence of cameras, it's not uncommon to record strange phenomena, underwater creatures sometimes never seen before. On a Reddit dedicated to divers, the user Peter Wesker tells us the memory of a traumatic dive near an oil platform. It was in 2007, and at that time, he worked in a deep sea diving company with a mission to inspect the platform Arab Drill 70, located in the Persian Gulf. Except that underwater, there was a strange noise. He describes it as a kind of door noise that opens and then closes. Maybe it's the drill. Impossible according to him. It's 9,000 meters deep underground. The noise became unbearable, so much so that some divers from the team surfaced in panic without respecting the decompression stops. Even today, we don't know what it was. Another noise to add to the long list of mysterious sounds produced by the ocean. You surely know the story of the Blue, this mysterious noise recorded in 1997 off the Pacific. He had no explanation until very recently. It was discovered almost 15 years later that it was probably an ice quake caused by a massive iceberg. Another sound, which this time took 50 years to be solved, is the bioduct. It was actually an Antarctic minke whale. So recently, mystery solved for these two famous noises, but there are dozens of others. Who knows what kind of creatures with terrifying cries are hiding in these oceanic abysses? These cute animals, but who want to eat you? Watching Pinocchio as a child, I was disturbed by the scene where he gets swallowed by a giant whale. We find similar scenes in One Piece or in Zelda, and for good reason. It comes from both the Bible, with the myth of Jonah, but also from this supposedly true story, that of James Bartley, a sailor who during a whale hunt was supposedly swallowed by one. He allegedly survived for 36 hours in his stomach, his skin burned by the acid, slashing the beast's insides with a knife until it washed ashore. Well, today scientists unanimously agree that this story is false. But what if I told you there really was a diver who was swallowed by a whale, and it was photographed? Rainer Schimpf was swimming among sardines when a massive whale emerged from the depths to engulf him. Contrary to popular belief, not all whales eat only plankton. They can also take apart your giant squids for a meal. Check out these sperm whale teeth. Obviously for our diver, it was more fear than harm. The whale immediately spat him out unharmed. In this part, you're probably expecting me to talk about encounters with sharks, but no, that would be too easy. Hey dude, hey. We're going to talk about frightening encounters that turned out well. On Reddit, there are plenty of creepy stories about Goliath groupers swallowing a diver, about triggerfish attacks capable of cutting through wetsuits, and this rather surprising story, a turtle attack. It was his first night dive and the instructor reassured him well. Yeah, there are bull sharks around, but don't worry, it's going to be fine. Underwater, everything is going well, except he wakes up a turtle with his flashlight. No worries, it's a gentle creature. He continues on his way and they followed each other. Whack! A bite! Immediately he thinks of the bull shark, but no, it's the turtle from earlier. Ultra angry. Bite after bite, it doesn't let go. The diver panics, flees far from the group, drops his flashlight, and it gets worse with a sudden cramp in his leg. He's there at the bottom of the sea in complete darkness, far from his companions, chased by a turtle with maybe bull sharks around. I wouldn't want to be in his place. Well, fortunately, after 10 minutes, he finally sees the glow of a flashlight in the distance. And it was his friends. So, did you enjoy these 6 stories? Not sure if they cured your thalassophobia. Not sure either if you feel like diving this summer. But besides that, my big brother is a diving instructor and he sees beautiful things every day. Well accompanied, well trained. With professionals, you don't risk much. Tell me what you think and feel free to share your diving stories in the comments. Remember to subscribe to the channel and give the love like. Alright friends, ciao.